I tell you, for a moment there, I thought Tony Bloom might be getting his wish. I thought that Hearts were seriously looking at an opportunity to pull ahead at the top of the Scottish Premiership table. Maybe this was the year. But no, who steps up? Ice cold KELECHIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIiI Celtic walk out of Rugby Park with 3 points this afternoon. And don't get me wrong, I don't think Celtic were at their absolute best, but when you consider the circumstances, Rugby Park being one of the more difficult venues in this division, a win's a win. And to be honest, I think there was improvement from Celtic today. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Welcome to the match reaction. Kilmarnock 1, Celtic 2. We got all 3 points in the end thanks to, let me just check, 96th minute KELECHIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIiి and on paper that sounds like Celtic got away with one today, and to an extent, listen, I'm not going to argue it. I don't think we were great by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think it was the most convincing performance you're ever going to see. But to be honest, I think that flatters Kilmarnock a little bit more on paper than what it did in practice. Because I'm not going to lie, and maybe I just have a different perception of today's game, and maybe I'm looking at things a little bit more glass half full than empty. I would have felt robbed if Celtic didn't walk away with the 3 points. And I do acknowledge that we weren't back to our best, that we still have a lot of improvement to do. But I just thought we were the better team all in, and I thought that we should have been winning the game quite comfortably, to be honest. We're still not creating as many convincing chances as I'd like, but across the 90 minutes, Celtic were the much better team. The stats would back that up. The possession, the shots, everything else in the game would suggest that Celtic were thoroughly in control of the game. I would have felt slightly robbed, don't get me wrong. Credit to Kilmarnock for their performance today, because they weren't bad by any means. But yeah, I just think that we probably deserved the win in the end. And yes, we get it through fortunate circumstances, but sometimes you need fortunate circumstances, and sometimes those are the kind of games, and that's the kind of persistence that takes you on to winning league titles. And you know, that's why we've done it so many times over the past few years. When the going gets tough, Celtic get going, quite frankly. And don't get it twisted. I think there is a lot of positives to take away from today's game as well. I know some people will probably be desperate to talk about how certain aspects of the game still need improved, and I will do that in this video, and how some people weren't totally convinced by the performance. But I mean, we're going to talk about Sebastian Tounekti. We're going to talk about other aspects of the performance that were to be admired as well. I think it was a lot more optimistic of a performance. Well, at the end, I was a lot more optimistic than what I was when we finished against Kairat Almaty, or how we finished against Rangers. We just looked a little bit better today, a little bit more direct and positive in our play. While also bringing into consideration the fact that improvement still needs to be done. I think the guy that's going to walk away from today's game with his head held highest and was easily man of the match for me, and I think for most people watching, is Sebastian Tounekti. He was a real joy to watch this afternoon. And I know usually I would start with first half, do second half and all the rest of it, but Tounekti deserves a portion of this to be dedicated to him. He was great today. He was a real breath of fresh air on that left-hand side. Just seeing a winger who's ready to take his man on, to try something, to cut inside, to hit the line, do whatever, and just to keep doing it no matter if it works or not. It wasn't like his head would drop. His head would be still up and ready to try it again, ready to try something else that would work. And I think that Sebastian Tounekti gave himself a fantastic first impression to the Celtic supporters today. The one criticism I have is that the end product just doesn't look like it's there yet for him. But that will come with time, that will come with confidence as well. And if you can really drill into him some end product, if you can improve his finishing and his shooting, we're going to have a serious player in our hands. And I think it's acceptable to be optimistic about a player after one game. It's something that we've desperately needed in this forward line. We've needed another type of player, another dimension of our game has been unlocked by having someone like Tounekti. And considering the circumstances in which he joined, where not an awful lot of people had high expectations, there was a lot of criticism over how the deal was handled. Was he Celtic's first or last choice? All these questions that were asked about Sebastian Tounekti heading into the end of the transfer window and today's game. For him to come out and have a performance like that this afternoon, that fills me with a lot of confidence and fills me with a lot of joy. As long as he can keep that up, I think we've got a serious player in our hands on the wing for Celtic. And it's clear as day that maybe putting him in the left-hand side was was the right decision. Because Mikael Ange Balikwisha hasn't had the best start to his life at Celtic. But if he's the guy that's got a little bit more experience and he's played at a higher level than maybe what Tounekti has, yeah, put him where he's going to be more confident. I was really pleased with his performance today. I think that's going to be one of the massive talking points about today's game and the main positive to take away from it. To flip that over to Balikwisha for a minute again, not great. Wasn't as impressed with him. That's now 2 performances back to back against Rangers and Kilmarnock, where he hasn't been good enough. He's been far too negative, passing the ball backwards, not taking his man on, basically doing the exact opposite of what Tounekti does. And I don't want to just give cheap excuses or free passes to players. I do feel for him being shifted out to the right hand side when he's not a right winger. This is once again the poor squad management coming back to haunt us. We're shoehorning players into positions that they aren't naturally playing throughout their careers, and that's asking for a lot of work. And it's not easy for a professional just to suddenly play on the other wing. And I do feel sorry for him, but he needs to do better. Right wing, wrong wing, whatever you're talking about here. He does need to do better, and Balikwisha did let me down a little bit again today, but I think that we're all going to be pretty excited to see what comes next of Sebastian Tounekti, and hopefully he can keep that up and keep breeding that confidence and optimism into the Celtic supporters. Shall we go back to the start of the game then, as we normally would? Of course, Celtic weren't heading to Rugby Park with the ideal starting 11 this afternoon. The likes of Colby Donovan and Marcelo Sarachi coming into the starting 11, they aren't part of the traditional strongest side. And then obviously the kind of fresh front three, 2 new boys in. There was a lot to be nervous about, I think, when you saw the starting 11. But I think in general they handled it pretty well. First half wasn't electric, but they held their ground pretty well. Defensively, we didn't have much to worry about. It was still quite stagnant when trying to get up the park and move the ball forward, but I certainly see the improvement from the last games against Rangers and Kairat Almaty. So I think there was positives to take, despite it being generally more of the same. Everybody, I think, had that same feeling at half-time of, God, here we go, Celtic aren't going to score again. It's going to be another one of those days, but it's still nil. Will we ever see Celtic score again? And I can understand that, but I do genuinely believe there was improvement. Not as much as improvement as we need to see, or that we'd like to see, but I do believe there was improvement, and especially when you consider everything about how tough it is to beat this Kilmarnock side at the minute, who are unbeaten going into today's game, who have a manager like Stuart Kettlewell with a proven track record and making teams tough to beat. Like, I could perfectly understand being at 0-0 with Kilmarnock at the best of times, never mind the worst of times. And I think that at any other time, not many fans would blink or bat an eyelid at being level at the break with Kilmarnock, but just because of the circumstances and the position that we're in heading into it, that was always going to make it more of a talking point. That was always going to make it a bit more unacceptable for Celtic supporters. But I had faith that we'd come out the second half and do well, and we did. Second half performance was good, I thought, for the first 30 minutes of the half, and then I thought we tailed off a little bit. But the first 30 minutes I thought we played well, and let's talk about the goal. Marcelo Sarachi crossed the ball to Daisen Maeda. We all wanted Maeda to be on the score sheet today. We all wanted him to be back to his best, and it's a great goal. It's a fantastic goal. And the funny thing is, I don't think Maeda had a cracking game by any stretch. He was not in it an awful lot. I think we struggled to get him involved. But when he did get involved, he steps up with a goal like that. And the cross from Marcelo Sarachi is stunning, by the way. I thought he had a good game, really good game, Marcelo Sarachi over on that left-hand side. And dare I say, much better than what Kieran Tierney gave us when he got in the park. So I was impressed with that whole left-hand side this afternoon. Marcelo Sarachi and Daisen Maeda. I thought that they both played really, really well. Sorry, not Daisen Maeda. Sebastian Tounekti. I thought they played really well together. Considering it was the first time they played together as well, you could see that there was still some rawness, let's call it that. It was still a little bit raw with that connection. I thought that's a word that I would use about a lot of Celtic's game today, was raw. Tounekti looked raw. Donovan looked raw. The partnership in the left-hand side looked raw. But sometimes you just need to bear through that, and I thought we did well. The cross to Maeda, brilliant. 1-0 up. And we followed up well for the first sort of 10-15 minutes, but we started to tail off a little. And that's when we let Kilmarnock get back into the game. from about the 75th minute onwards, we weren't good enough. That's where my concerns started to come back. Because right up until that 75th minute, and especially when we're 1-0 up, I'm thinking, right, this is good today. Just get out of Rugby Park with 3 points. We've played well enough. I've seen improvement, good. And then bang, David Watson's goal kind of blows everything apart. Poor set-piece defending. The set pieces today, I thought offensively looked a bit better, but still not the standard we should be expecting. But defensively we struggled, and that goal was the epitome of that. We struggled to defend it. There needs to be more works. I mean, I'm banging this drum about set pieces all season. I'm actually fed up talking about it, to be quite honest. We don't defend the set piece well enough. It's actually Tounekti who lets his man get away, and David Watson with a bullet header scores. But from about the 75th minute onwards, and even after that goal, Celtic just weren't good enough. And actually, we were the ones against the ropes a wee bit for the last 7 minutes of regular time. You know, like Kilmarnock looked like the team that were chasing the winner. We looked like the team that were nervous to lose the game. And that's where everything kind of came tumbling down, and my whole narrative about the afternoon started to change. I suddenly went from being somebody who was like, this is a solid performance today, it's a good result to get at Rugby Park, we've looked better, to 83 minutes onwards going, this is shocking, big questions to be asked, we're back to square one. And that was the real, you know, it was like 2 separate games in one for me, between 0 and 70 minutes almost, and then kind of 70 minutes onwards. So I didn't like how we closed the game, but I think there was real problems with how we closed the game. The fact that we had a questionable team on the park to finish it, the likes of Yang and Forrest coming on, and no disrespect to Forrest, I feel like I need to say that every time, but of course, 34 years of age, he isn't exactly at his peak. Yang simply not good enough. Tierney didn't look great either. It just, the squad was a little bit thrown about, and I think we looked nervous and disjointed. Yeah, it just felt like a tale of 2 games, but we got through it in the end. We won a penalty, and some people might call it luck, but I think we got what we deserved, and that was 3 points. KELECHIIIIIIIIIIIIII, there was 2 people that came to my mind when he stepped up for that penalty, and both of them perfectly represented what we were about to see. We were either going to see him do the Adamida, when he stepped up on his debut against Hibs and converted from the spot, and he breathed this air of confidence into us that he wasn't going to be a dud of a signing, or he was going to step up and do the Georgios Giacomakis and miss a 90th minute penalty, and the narrative was going to flip, and it was going to be so negative, and it was going to be doom and gloom for him for the next couple of weeks or maybe even months. Thank God he done what Adamida done and not Georgios Giacomakis, and he scored the penalty, and and it's cool as you like, it's brilliant. We got what we deserved. I think we deserved the 3 points, and I think there's going to be a bit of a conversation that comes around about the penalty. For me, it is a penalty. You see it given all the time. You have to be consistent. I do think it's unfortunate. I know Killie fans might be jumping into my comments section to talk about the penalty. I get it. It's unfortunate the way that it's deflected up into the hands. It's such close range and stuff. It makes it difficult. But the ball was going on target. If you use your hands, the ball's going on target, accidental or not, there's not much of a defence you can give. And I do think it's unfortunate. I do feel for them in that situation. I don't feel for them at all. But we got the penalty, and I think it should have been a penalty. We win the game. He slots it home. Brilliant start for life for KELECHIIIIIIIIIII. That will help bring support onto him, which I think we all do anyway. Despite the narrative that was there when he signed for the club, I think we all want to support every player, but that'll do him the world of good anyway. Celtic walk away with their 3 points, and what was a bit of an up and down afternoon at times, I think genuinely turned out to be a pretty decent success, all things considered. So I have sounded more positive, haven't I? I think I have. Maybe too positive for some people. We need to get into some of the negatives. It wasn't perfect from Celtic today. Between, as I said, the 83rd and 90th minute, I was pretty concerned. I'm not going to pretend that concern has just suddenly disappeared. But there is concerns I have from the game. If you watched my pre-match live stream, then you'll know what I said about the midfield. And I think that carries over to today. Something needs to change in the midfield for me. It really does. I think that we are asking for problems. I think we're self-harming in games because of how the midfield is set up. And I'm worried about Callum McGregor moving forward. I am. I really am. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't terrible today. I just don't think there was enough there to suggest that he had a great game either. I think he needs support in that role. I think you've either got to play someone alongside him, like Paulo Bernardo, and then maybe you play Hatate in front, which I think in Scotland Shouldn't be Celtic's aim to play sort of two holding midfielders, but McGregor clearly needs support in beside him at this stage of his career, I think. Or you move McGregor and you change his role in that midfield, because I don't think he can do that anymore. And he's got too much work to do that he just can't handle, it feels like. His performances haven't been good enough across all the competitive games so far for me this season, and the midfield today was a big part of the problems for Celtic. I thought on the wings, especially, Tounekti's side, I should say, we looked a lot better. I thought we were making more chances and being more optimistic, but you've got to get so much more from your midfield, and we're not getting that in the minute. For me, something has to change in there. It does. And whether that's the personnel you're picking, I don't think Nygren had a particularly great game. I don't think Hatate had a particularly great game either, to be honest. I think that just sums up the issue. If you're not getting anything out that midfield, which should be so much better, something needs to change in it. And whether that's the way you set it up or the personnel that you put into it, there's players on that bench who can give us more at times. McCowan, Bernardo, they're both sitting there. Arne Engels is there as well. Like, persistence sometimes can be the downfall of Brendan Rodgers, and I think we all know that, but I just think that McGregor looks out his depth at the minute doing what he has to do. I really do. And I would change how the midfield three operates moving forward. But we'll see what happens. That for me was the main negative today. The midfield were just they weren't good enough for me. And maybe some people disagree with that, but I just didn't like what I saw of it. So yeah, and Kieran Tierney as well. Oh, didn't look great when he came on the park. But he hasn't been training this week and stuff, so I'll let him away with it for now. But I don't want to have to dive deeper into those conversations as the season goes on. Right, that's it for the match reaction. If you've enjoyed, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. I'll see you all tomorrow when we're back to discuss another fresh week at Celtic. And, aye, see you next time.